Good morning, ministers. Good morning, Attorney General. Good morning to the members of the press. And of course, good morning to all Belizeans at home and abroad. It has been 270 days since the first case of COVID-19 and 265 days since the first measures were taken to try to slow the threat of a virus that no one saw coming. Last night, we all sat in front of our televisions at 6:30 anxious, while the heated public debate from taxicabs, market stalls, hair salons, chat groups, and bus stops over whether we should have another lockdown or whether Belizeans had the self-policing skills to carry out ourselves through the upcoming Christmas season. The local news last night was a clear example of how balance is as much a cure as social distancing. So where is the balance? A declaration that we recognize that hard restrictions need to be put in place but not sacrifice the soul of the Belizean man, woman, child, and family? Well, these are the measures. I know a lot of what we will be discussing will be a repetition of what was in place before, but it is extremely important that all Belizeans recognize that these measures are still in place and that we must adhere to these restrictions. First of all, generally speaking, if you are at home watching this right now and you are experiencing flu-like symptoms and you believe you may have COVID-19, you are asked under these regulations to please call the Ministry of Health, who will then decide whether or not you are an individual who needs to be quarantined. Those of us Belizeans who test positive for COVID-19 can only be discharged and declared recovered by a healthcare professional. So if you have tested positive, you will be put on mandatory quarantine. Please do not leave your quarantine or your isolation until you have been discharged or declared recovered, again, only by the Ministry of Health or a healthcare professional who is following those protocols. As the minister just mentioned, we will now be having a nationwide curfew, and that is starting on the 20th of December, and it will commence at 8 p.m. So 8 p.m. every evening, you are to be at home, and that goes until 5 a.m. the following morning. Minors, anybody under 16 years of age, must be at a residence or their home that they are staying by 6 p.m. So it is different for minors. You have to be home by 6 p.m. and that curfew extends to 5 a.m. the following morning. This curfew of 8 p.m. excludes workers in the following professions: the security forces, Customs and Excise Department, the Department of Immigration Services, frontline healthcare providers with the Ministry of Health, or any other essential worker issued a badge by the Minister of Home Affairs. So everybody else has to be at home by 8 p.m., minors by 6 p.m. Face masks. You must be tired of hearing about face masks, but every single day the police department is arresting and detaining in some cases, hundreds of individuals violating this very measure, the wearing of face masks and wearing face masks properly, meaning it must cover your nose and your mouth. There is no need for you to wear face masks if you are at a private residence, if you are exercising, swimming, if you are driving alone, or driving with members of the same household. Those are the only exceptions. In terms of businesses, no owner or manager of a business should allow entry to anyone who is not wearing their face mask and wearing it properly. So there is a responsibility being placed on owners and managers of establishments. Please ensure that your customers are wearing face masks at all times. It is an offense not to wear face masks and not to wear it properly, and the charge for that offense is $500. You will recall that there was a maximum that was imposed under the last couple SIs of $5,000. Well, in practice, at the magistrates court level, we saw where the magistrates were fining people between $500 to $1,500. Much of those fines have not been paid, but in fact the police is going to be following up on those fines, so you have a responsibility to pay that. That fine is now across the board $500. The Attorney General's ministry is currently drafting legislation that early in the new year we will be presenting, so that police officers can issue tickets. So that is not in place yet. So you will still be detained, you will still be taken to the police station process, and you will still need to go to court at least until that law is passed. So please be aware of that, that it is not a ticketable offense at this moment, but early in the new year, we will be moving in that direction. Social distancing. You must stay 6 feet apart from any individual that is near to you. No matter where you are, 6 feet apart. That is also an offense. So whether you're working at a BPO, whether you're just standing in a line outside a shop, you have to maintain 6 feet apart from individuals. That is an offense that carries, again, a $500 penalty. Gatherings. I know that at this time of year, many people are questioning, can I have anybody over at my house? No. You are not allowed to have anybody at your house. So no type of private gathering is allowed. You cannot organize, host, or attend private gatherings. 10 people maximum. So every now and again you might have a visitor. Unexpected. That's different from hosting a private gathering. You can have a visitor, but make sure it is never over 10 people. The moment you're over 10 people inside your residence, then everybody can be charged under this SI. Everybody. The person who owns the house and those who are attending that private gathering that has more than 10 people. This, of course, we have to bear in mind that there are households that have more than 10 people that reside there. So of course you are allowed to stay there if your household is more than 10 people. So that is of course the exception. Otherwise, no hosting of any private gathering. We have set up, especially for this time of year, a special hotline at the police department. And that hotline is 0800 parties. So we're asking you, the members of the public, to cooperate with us in the Ministry of Home Affairs to report anybody that is having a party or a social gathering that is over 10 people at their residence. So 0800 parties, 0800 727 8432. In terms of weddings, funerals, and masks, so church will be limited to 10 people in attendance at your wedding, in attendance at a funeral for your loved ones, or at mass. And that 10 will be in addition to, of course, the officiants, meaning the priests can be there. So that would be 11. So again, 10 people attending mass, weddings, funerals. The following businesses shall remain closed: bars, nightclubs, casinos, gyms, and gaming establishment. All of them are to remain closed during the term of this SI. Other businesses that are allowed to open under these regulations will have responsibilities as well, and this goes for government offices, this goes for shops, this goes for BPOs. Any business whatsoever across the board must follow these guidelines and these restrictions. As business owners and offices, you must ensure that the people inside, the customers, the staff, both inside and outside the building, maintain 6 feet distance at all times. So if you heard me correctly, inside and outside. I know there's a very popular fast food restaurant on Freetown Road. Whenever you pass there, you can see a lot of people gathered out there, and they are not practicing social distancing. So business owners, please be warned that this applies to outside of your business as well. So you will have to set up markers that are 6 feet apart, and you must ensure that those customers are practicing social distancing. In terms of inside your building, business owners have to ensure that customers, including staff, must not make up more than 50% maximum capacity of your building. So if your building can hold 100 people, which includes customers and staff, you now can only have 50 people inside your business. Again, outside your business, you must establish under this SI, you must place visible markers which are 6 feet apart outside of your establishment. That is the obligation, not of the police. I am not going to go out to your establishment and mark where the 6 feet stations should be. That is a responsibility of you, the responsible corporate citizen, to ensure that you are complying with this particular SI, because if not, I'm not going to be the one to get into trouble. You will, because you did not establish the markers. In addition to that, department stores, hardware stores, dry goods stores, shops, and the market shall ensure compliance of the store owners. So we are going to have, in relation to these specific businesses, department stores, hardware stores, dry goods stores, and shops, we're going to have justices of the peace assigned to your business. If your business is more than 2,000 square feet in size, we will have justices of the peace assigned to your business, and you will be responsible for paying the cost of having these justices of the peace. It is very regrettable that we have to impose this particular measure, but at this time of year, especially the next week up until Christmas Day, businesses will be overcrowded. And I am certain that businesses are not going to be concerned about whether there's social distancing being practiced. They'll be concerned about making money for their business. And so we're taking that responsibility and giving it to the justices of the peace across the country to now monitor, one, that there is social distancing being practiced within your stores. Two, to ensure that you are meeting the maximum 50% capacity and that you are not going over that. And three, to ensure that the customers and the staff inside your respective businesses are wearing their face masks and wearing them properly. All businesses, including BPOs, because you know BPOs, they don't have customers per se, but they have hundreds of employees. And so these regulations apply to them. The following regulations apply to them. So the justices of the peace will not be assigned to BPOs. So let me make that clear, because they don't have customers. But the responsibility for BPOs and other businesses still lies with the managers and owners. So they are to ensure that the employees are observing social distance among the workers, face masks at all times. They are to install hand wash stations at the entrance and within the BPO company. And they are to ensure that no more than 2 people are seated at any one table, and that during lunch breaks, the seating capacity of that particular room is up to 50% and no more. So your lunchroom cannot have everybody eating. If the capacity again is for 100, you can only have 50 workers, employees eating at that particular time, and no more than 2 at any particular table. All businesses, and this applies across the board, all businesses, including BPOs, shall appoint a COVID-19 internal auditor who will prepare and submit weekly reports to the Ministry of Health. So I want to request that the businesses familiarize themselves with this particular requirement, because every week you will have to provide information to the Ministry of Health, and they will guide you as to what you need to provide in that report. Businesses are to implement a shift system unless they are essential businesses. And essential businesses are those involved in health, tourism, banking, law enforcement, agriculture, or food. So all other businesses, if you are not essential, you must implement a shift system. Every employer of non-essential business shall implement measures to allow their employees to work from home where possible. And these employees, so even though they told you that you are to work from home, you, the employee, you also have a responsibility at that point, because you're working from home. You have a responsibility to your employer. And under this SI, you are to stay home and observe all protocols, and you are to report to your employer as required or instructed. So not because you're at home means you get to go to the beach, or it means you get to go to Mirab. You are working from home and you are expected to report to your employer. In relation to spas, beauty salons, and barber shops, they are allowed to operate, but the general rule is this: you can have 1 customer that you're attending to and 1 customer that is waiting to be attended to. So 2 customers you're allowed to have at any time. However, if your business is extremely small and the capacity will not allow for 2 customers in your business, you can only have 1 at any given time, and that customer, like the 2, they are to make appointments before they come to your business. Now, if you have a business, a salon that is excessively big, again, that will be there is an exception to that rule under this SI, that you are allowed to have more than 2 in your business. However, at all times, they must maintain the 6 feet social distancing. Fines on businesses. This is very important. The Ministry of Health will conduct spot checks on businesses to ensure compliance at all times. You may get visits from the police department as well. So there are 2 agencies that will be looking at businesses. The Ministry of Health will have personnel and the police will have personnel. And those businesses who are not complying could face a shutting down of your business if your customers have not been complying or your staff has not been complying with these regulations. You could face a shutdown and you could be fined $5,000. In addition to that, the employees in your business will also be subjected to a fine. I think, Madam AG, that fine is $200, the employees, $200. So business owners, $5,000, employees, $200, and potentially your business could be shut down by the Ministry of Health. They have that authority to do so. Restaurants, diners, and food vendors shall only offer takeout, delivery, or drive-through. However, there is provision again for open air, outdoor, or al fresco dining, but that must be by reservation, and you cannot go over 50% of your capacity. So if you have a restaurant that could accommodate 300 people, but it has to be outdoor, you can only have 150 people, and they all have to make appointments. They have to make reservations before they come there. I don't think there's any restaurant that could seat so many people. I'm just giving an example. Many outdoor restaurants are extremely small, so perhaps a better example would be 20. If that's your seating capacity outdoor, then you can only have 10 at any given time. The food vendors are allowed to sell, but again, continuing from the last SI, only from a private property. You cannot be on the street side selling, you must be on a private property. Schools under this SI shall remain closed, but of course they may continue to operate online and virtually. Recreational non-contact sports, tennis, golf, table tennis, or any other similar non-contact sport will be allowed. Non-contact. So basketball, you cannot play basketball. Football, you cannot play football. Any of these other sports that entails contact shall remain for the time being restricted. You cannot engage in these sports. Walking, running, or cycling for exercise will be allowed, provided that social distancing is of course adhered to. And cyclists in particular shall ride in single file only. Now this is an important one. All of them are important, but this one is very important. Anyone using public or private transportation, including operators, bus operators, conductors, of course they must wear their face masks. and operators and conductors can deny a passenger from entering onto their bus or their boat or their vessel if they are not wearing their face masks. And public and private transportation must be limited to 50% of your capacity. I know that this one is this is a new provision that is being implemented, but one that has been called for all across the country. Buses are overcrowding and no doubt serving as a super spreader, especially those buses coming from the districts that have the highest rates. And so this provision had to be implemented. You can only have 50% capacity. You cannot go over that. Hand sanitizers, and this falls on the operators and conductors of the bus or the vessel. Hand sanitizers must be made available for your passengers. And of course, social distancing must be observed while you are waiting to get on the bus or on a vessel. This is another new provision. The minister alluded to it. No person or business or restaurant can sell liquor after 6 p.m. Every single day this applies. 6 p.m. across the board. Every business that sells liquor, you are no longer allowed to sell liquor after 6 p.m. So if it is that you want to pick up a beverage before you go home, remember curfew is 8 o'clock. So please get your beverage. I know it's the time of year that you might want to get an alcoholic beverage. Pick it up before 6 p.m. Take it to your home and you can enjoy it there. The reason this has become necessary is because what we have noticed in the last weeks and months is a lot of individuals have been going to parks, have been going to the seaside in large numbers and to consume for the most part. Some of them are not, but a lot of them are consuming alcohol. So they're finding a way around the bars. So again, it is regrettable we have to take this stand, but we must. So nobody is allowed to sell alcohol after 6 p.m. Another new provision. No person shall enter or exit the Orange Walk or Corozal districts unless, so we do have exceptions to this, unless you are going to and from work or you are traveling for the purpose of food distribution or for a medical emergency. So, Madam AG, there is no inter-district traveling and there is no inner-district traveling, meaning I cannot go from the Cayo district to the Orange Walk district to purchase tacos. I cannot do that. As much as I enjoy tacos like my friend Mr. Perifit, I cannot do that. There is also no inner-district commute. What does that mean? It means that you cannot, even within Orange Walk, go from one village to another village, or from one village to a town, even though it's within Orange Walk. And so we are restricting the travel to these districts and within these districts, and you can only do so, like I said, with those exceptions, meaning that you are going to and from work, and you are doing so for the purpose of food distribution or for a medical emergency. I see we have the Minister of Tourism here, and we still have the airport is going to remain open. We have made some strides in the tourism sector, nowhere close to where we need to be. And so we have to understand that this is something that we have to allow to continue. The flights into our country, especially for tourism, must continue, but we continue to have regulations in place to govern and to keep these restrictions and to have the foreign tourists subjected to these restrictions as well. So they, the foreign tourists, will still be obligated to reserve or book a hotel that is approved. You must be an approved hotel or resort in order to have a booking. You must make that booking, and in addition to that, you must make arrangements for you to get to that hotel. So your transportation must also be arranged. You might be wondering, how could you enforce that? Well, when you arrive, in addition to being subjected to the PCR testing at the airport, you will also be asked by the authorities to provide the proof of your booking and the proof that you have made transportation arrangements to get to your hotel. So anybody who is not in compliance with the above, including, and there's still the obligation for you to provide as a foreign tourist a PCR result that was given to you within 72 hours of your arrival. If you do not have that, you will have to take the PCR test at the airport. The rapid test will be administered to you at the airport. Sorry, 1 second. So I've just been informed that you must have the test results within 4 days of your travel. 4 days. So the test results can be 4 days instead of 72 hours of your travel. I know that a lot of the states especially have a time frame within which they provide their results, and it is 4 days. So that is what you will have to provide. A test result that was done within 4 days of your arrival to Belize. If you don't have that, you will be subjected to the test here in Belize. So if you don't have your booking at the hotel, if you don't make transportation arrangements to your hotel, and if you refuse for whatever reason to take the test, or you did not bring a test, you can be denied entry into Belize, and you will have to pay your transportation costs back. And the rapid tests, let me just make another clarification. The rapid tests would have to be within 48 hours. So there's a distinction made between the PCR, which can be 4 days prior to travel, and the rapid test 2 days, 48 hours before your arrival to Belize. So those are in the SI. If you test positive, you will be placed in a mandatory quarantine, one of the centers designated, one of the hotels designated by the government. So whether you're Belizean or whether you're a tourist, you will be placed in a mandatory quarantine. I think Belizeans, Madam AG, are allowed to stay at home but in quarantine. But tourists, there will be designated quarantine centers for them, and they can only come out of those quarantine centers, and it applies to Belizeans as well. You can only come out of your mandatory quarantine if you are discharged or declared recovered by the Ministry of Health or a healthcare professional using the guidelines from the Ministry of Health. The entry through land and sea ports remains closed except for cargo shipments, emergency medical travel, which must be approved by the Ministry of Health. You must get approval if you want to go through one of our land borders. Ministry of Health must clear you that you do have a medical emergency and it is required for you to travel. They will give you that clearance. You cannot go otherwise. Medical students returning home, specialists required to assist in Belize, business people with special interests in Belize, diplomats, holders of valid work permits. These people can come in, however, they need permission from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the consulate in order for them to come to Belize. So land borders otherwise remain closed. Otherwise, if you cross the border without this permission, you are considered a border jumper. And so we do have legislation, similar legislation as before as it pertains to border jumpers, and a similar, I believe it is a 3-month sentence. 3-month sentence if you are a border jumper. So my advice, do not try to come across any of our land or sea borders without getting the requisite permission, either from the Ministry of Health or from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So that is a summary, even though it was pretty lengthy, a summary of what our measures are today under the SI. I want to join the Minister of Health in wishing all Belizeans a very safe Christmas. This is not going to be the last Christmas, guys. There will be more. So let us just be safe, at least for this one, while we work to containing the spread of COVID-19 in Belize. Thank you very much.